Good day, everyone. I am Mrs. Joanne Sisinampan, your biotechnology teacher. Welcome to our biotechnology class school year 2020-2021 in the new normal in education. The different parts of your body might seem to have nothing in common. Your heart, for example, pumps blood throughout your body, while your skin protects and helps you cool. However, your body parts have one thing in common. They are composed of cells. So in this video, you shall be learning all about cells and cell organelles doing life's work. When you were in grade 7, you have learned according to the cell theory that cells are the basic units of all living organisms. By observing your own body and the living things around you, you might infer that cells must exist in various sizes, various shapes, and you also might infer that cells differ based on the functions they form for an organism. There are actually two types of cells. We have the prokaryotic cells or the prokaryotes, no organelles. An example of this is the bacteria or the bacterial cells. While we have the eukaryotic cells wherein they have different organelles. The basic example of eukaryotes are the animal cells and the plant cells. If we're going to compare the sizes of the cell, most bacteria has 1 to 10 microns, while eukaryotic cells we have 10 to 100 microns. By the way, micron is equal to micrometer, which is equal to 1 over 1,000 or 1 million meter. So look at the diameter of the human hair. Why study cells? If you're going to look at the flow, cells of the same kind and the same function will make up the tissues. And the same tissues will make up the organ or organs. If you are going to put together all the organs, it will make up the body of the organism. So, bodies are made up of cells. Okay? And cells do all the work of life. So let's find out why it says here that cells do all the work of life. What jobs do cells have to do for an organism to live? Everyone inhale, exhale. It helps us breathe, wherein there is what we call gas exchange. Oxygen when we breathe in, and carbon dioxide will move out from our body when we breathe out. The cell helps us eat. We take in and digest food through our digestive system. And of course, when we eat, we have energy. And the cells make energy. We have the ATP or the adenosine triphosphate. Cells build molecules, the proteins, the carbohydrates, the fats, the nucleic acids. And of course, it removes waste. So if you have noticed, my dear students, cells does all the body functions. In other words, the cells have a lot of functions. It even controls internal conditions and that is what we call the homeostasis. If our body is balanced, the functioning or the condition of our body is balanced, meaning to say our body is in homeostatic state. And of course, the reason why we are reactive, it is because the cells respond to external environment. And as we grow, the cells build more cells. We grow, the cells grow, the cells repair, it also reproduces, and it develops. So imagine yourself when you were a baby, now that you are grade 8. The cells have undergone growth, repair, reproduction, and development. There are different jobs of cells. Even though the cell is a very minute one, a very little one, it is so microscopic. It has a lot of jobs to do. First, we have it make energy. This energy is what we call the adenosine triphosphate. So we are going to discuss later what particular organelle of the cell that is responsible in converting our food into what we call energy, the adenosine triphosphate. Cells need energy also for all activities. You need energy for all your activities. We need energy for all our activities. Aside from making energy, the cell also needs to clean up waste produced while making energy. Later on, we shall be discussing all about cellular respiration. We could understand very well how the cell produces energy and how it cleans up waste while making the energy. The second one, it makes proteins. Look at you, my dear students. Look at your siblings. You may be siblings, you have the same parents, but if you're going to look at you, you are not exactly the same. Why? Because of this, what we call the protein. By the way, proteins do all the work in a cell, so we need lots of them. It makes more cells for growth, to replace damaged or diseased cells. So please do remember all the jobs of cells. Those are the three main jobs. The organelles do all these jobs. So look at this. This is a model of an animal cell. By the way, an animal cell is considered to be the typical eukaryotic cell. Why? Let's find out by and by. Now, this animal cell has a lot, or made up rather, of organelles. And organelles do the work of cells. Each structure has a job to do. It keeps the cell alive. It keeps you alive. That's the reason why you are listening now in my video, because you are alive. I can make video because I am alive. It makes me, the cell makes me and you alive. Though these organelles are considered mini, cells need power. It makes energy to fuel daily life and growth. The cell must take in food and digest, just like us, because we are made up of cells. It also takes in oxygen, and of course, it makes ATP. It removes waste. And organelles that do this work are the cell membrane, the lysosomes, the vacuole and vesicles. And also, we have the mitochondria. So we're now moving on to the different cell organelles. Let's start with the cell membrane. When we say cell membrane, it separates a cell from outside. When we say from outside, from its environment. Now, cell membrane controls what enters or leaves the cell. That's why we call it as a semi-permeable cell membrane. We're going to discuss by and by. What are the different materials that enters or leaves the cell? Have the oxygen, carbon dioxide, the food, water, nutrients, and waste. It also recognizes signals from the other cells. That's the reason why, okay, dear students, our cells are also reactive. It allows communication between cells. So let's look into its structure. Look into the cell membrane, guys. So if you look at the yellow one, so there are big ones also. What are those? Okay, those are actually found outside the cell or even inside the cell. If you are going to describe the cell membrane, it is a double layer of fat. And let's find out why it's fat. Okay, this is what we call phospholipid bilayer. So if I'm going to ask you later on the structure of the cell membrane, you may say it is made up of double layer of fat, or what we call the phospholipid bilayer. So I have here a phosphate head, okay, and a phosphate tail. So the the tail is described it as a lipid tail, and the head is made up of phosphate. That's the reason why we call it as phospholipid bilayer. Ayan. So look at it. It is phospholipid bilayer. Why? Because if you're going to look at it, what you find outside and what you find inside is the same. So cell membrane also is a receptor molecules. It receives signal. It's the protein that receives signal. Where are the proteins there? We have there the orange one, the purple one, and the green one. So you could also see the carbohydrate chain. So later on, we're going to discuss the functions of the plasma membrane in a separate lesson. So moving on to the different organelles of the cell. Look at it. You have seen the red one, okay, the lines there. That is, as you can see here, we have here the cell membrane, as we made mention. It controls the movement of materials in and out. It is considered as the cell boundary, and it recognizes the signals. Now, there is what we call a jelly-like material holding organelles in place, and that is what we call the cytoplasm. Looking clearly into the different organelles, we have here the vacuoles and the vesicles. Where are the vacuoles and the vesicles there? So if you could see here, the circular one, okay, that may be found right at the cell membrane and inside the cell, or it is embedded in the cytoplasm. The vacuoles or the vesicles actually the one moving material around the cell. It is considered as the storage of water and food. So let's look into the small food particle that enters the cell. So there we have the vesicle. Okay, so it is a membrane sac and vacuole filled with what we call the digestive enzymes. The vesicle, by the way, is filled with digested nutrients. Okay, look, in the plant cell, the size of the vacuole is different from that of the size of the vacuole in the animal cell. As I said earlier, the vacuole serves as the storage for food and water. So look at the cell, the uh, jelly-like crystal structure there, okay, is the vacuole, and you could see small ones in the plant cell. And the paramecium has also what we call the food vacuole. Okay, so these organisms are also made up of vacuoles, but the different thing, my dear students, is that in the plant cell, they have what we call a central vacuole, while that in the paramecium, they have what we call a food vacuole, and also we have it in the animal cell. We commonly call also as the food vacuole. We have also what we call the vesicles. So there, we have the food vacuole in the animal cell. We have also contractile vacuole in the paramecium. And in the plant cell, we have what we call the central vacuole. Now, going back to that of the animal cell, let's discuss more of the different parts. So we are done with the cytoplasm, the vacuole and vesicles, the cell membrane. Okay, now we have here the lysosome. Okay, now where is the lysosome there? By the way, the lysosome digests food. It used to make energy. It also clean up and recycle. And it digests broken organelles. But how does it look like? Okay, it is a membrane sac of digestive enzymes. Okay, so there, dear students, we have what we call the lysosomes, membrane sac of digestive enzymes. Okay, they are responsible in digesting food and digesting broken organelles. Now, let's look into the job also of lysosome in a developing baby. Okay, look at it. So at 6 weeks, the lysosome is already working, okay, in the womb of your mother, okay, until when we are born. Okay, so look at it, the different changes. So let's continue. We have now the mitochondria. The mitochondria is found in both plants and animal cells. If you could imagine your the one that you buy in a Jollibee, the Jolly hot dog, okay, the Jolly hot dog, wherein it looks like the mitochondria of the cell. So let's look into the function. It's now the mitochondria that make ATP, that is the energy from the cellular respiration, as I said earlier, in which it converts the sugar. Where do we get the sugar? The carbohydrates that we eat, plus the presence of oxygen, and it will later on be converted into what we call the ATP. And It fuels the work of life. That's the reason why, guys, when you get tired, you just simply get a candy, then you're going to chew the candy, okay? Because it is made up of sugar, it energizes you. Okay. Also chocolates. When you are stressed, you can just simply eat chocolates to fuel your energy. Now, as to the structure, if you're going to look at it, the mitochondrion is actually it is actually a double membrane. Okay. Now, plants make energy in two ways. So look at the mitochondrion. It makes energy from sugar plus oxygen during the cellular respiration and the chloroplast. Okay. The chloroplast is only found in the plant cell rather, wherein it make energy plus sugar from sunlight through what we call the process of photosynthesis. So we're going to discuss later on all about photosynthesis. But when you go back to your elementary discussion about it, you always remember that sunlight plus carbon dioxide, okay? And that is photosynthesis. But in here, please do remember that the product of photosynthesis is ATP and sugar. The ATP, active energy, and sugar is the stored energy. Okay? And in plants, during the process of photosynthesis, it has to build leaves and roots and fruit out. Mitochondria are in both cells, both in plant and animal cells. So look at the orange ones. Those are what we call the mitochondria. Yeah, that's it. There you have it, guys. While the green one, which is only found in plant cells, you call that as the chloroplast. Guys, look at the plant cell. The plant cell is also made up of cytoplasm. It has also cell membrane. But there's one thing that is found in the plant cell that is not found in other cells. Just like the animal cell, we have the cell wall. Okay? We have the central vacuole also in plant cell. And of course, there's what we call the lysosome. Mitochondria, the chloroplast. So, those are the different parts of the plant cell. Now, the second thing that you need to remember is that cells need workers. And these workers are what we call the proteins. What particular part of the cell is responsible in the production of proteins? By the way, proteins is for us to run daily life and growth, the cell must have these proteins that read genes or the DNA. In the earlier part of our instructional video, I said earlier that we have different phases. Okay? Even if you are siblings, you do not have the same DNA. You don't look alike because you have different DNA. Now, the proteins are being built in our muscles. Okay? The structural proteins are in the muscle fibers, hair, skin, and clothes. And enzymes speed up chemical reactions. Okay. Another thing that you need to remember about the proteins is that they, what we call the signals and receptors. The organelles that do this work is what we call the nucleus, the ribosomes, endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi Apparatus. So let's find out which organelle does the proteins. One of the major job of cell is to make proteins because proteins do all the work. So we have there the DNA, the proteins, and the cells. The structural cells, the enzymes, and of course, the signals. Okay, so let's continue with the different organelles of the cell. One very important, if not the most important part or organelle of the cell, we have here the nucleus. For what is the nucleus of the cell? It's considered as the control center of cell. It protects DNA, and the DNA is the structure for building proteins. And how does a nucleus look like? It has nuclear membrane. If you're going to look at it, it seems as though there are different pores. That is what we call the nuclear pore. And there is a smaller nucleus that is found within or at the center of the nucleus, and that is what we call the nucleolus. It is there where the ribosomes are manufactured. That's why it's considered as the ribosome factory. And if there's one thing that you need to remember about the nucleus, there is what we call the chromosomes. So what word that we usually associate with the chromosome? We have the DNA or the deoxyribonucleic acid. Okay? So guys, let's continue now. But before that, let's have a short recall. So we have here the different parts. Okay? There, the nucleus, there, the nucleolus. And of course, you have seen there the chromosomes. Now, let's have the ribosomes. For what is the ribosome? It is considered as protein factories. It reads instructions to build proteins from DNA. There is what we call the building of protein in the different parts of our body. Why do you have that shape of your eyes? Why do you have that shape of your lips that is different from the others? Because we have different DNA that is being read by what we call the ribosome. So, going back at the, the whole thing of the cell, you would see some free ribosome that is found in the cytoplasm, but some may be attached to ER or what we call the endoplasmic reticulum. So we have here the different ribosomes. As I said earlier, it could be attached or it is free. So ribosomes build proteins. And then we have here the endoplasmic reticulum. So look at the endoplasmic reticulum. The endoplasmic reticulum is actually attached to the nucleus. So let's find out why it seems as though it is attached to the nucleus. The function of the endoplasmic reticulum is to work on proteins. Remember that the ribosomes are being built in the nucleolus of the cell. Now, it helps complete the protein after ribosome build them, and it makes membranes. So, there are two kinds of endoplasmic reticulum. We have the rough ER and the smooth ER. Now, what is the difference between the rough ER and the smooth ER? The rough ER, when ribosomes are attached, and it works on proteins, and when we say smooth ER, there are no ribosomes, but it makes membranes. So, we have there the endoplasmic reticulum. Again, remember that ER works on proteins and it makes membranes. Okay. Another is the Golgi Apparatus. By the way, Golgi Apparatus is named after the discoverer of this. We have Camillo Golgi or Camillo Golgi. Now look at it. It may look like that of endoplasmic reticulum, but you need to be very careful because when I'm going to ask you which one is the Golgi and the endoplasmic reticulum, you could identify which one is the Golgi and which one is the endoplasmic reticulum. Looking into its function, the Golgi apparatus finishes, sorts, labels, and ships proteins. Like UPS headquarters, they are responsible in shipping and receiving department. Okay, so let's take for example, if you are going to order in the Lazada, okay, the one that ships your goods, we have the Ninja Van, okay, we have the LBC. So just like that of the Golgi apparatus, it ships and it's considered as the shipping and receiving department because it ships proteins in vesicles. Now, let's look into its structure. Just like that of the vesicle, the endoplasmic reticulum has a membrane sacs. Okay, so this is how protein is being made. So look at this, the diagram very well. Okay, so I'll just click and try to understand. Okay, so that's how the different organelles work on in making proteins. Later on, we shall have what we call the central dogma. We shall be discussing later on the making of proteins in a very comprehensive one. But for now, let's just look into the different cell organelles. Okay. So in making proteins, then, my dear students, always remember the different organelles. We have the nucleus, the endoplasmic reticulum, we have the ribosomes, and the Golgi apparatus. Remember, the finished protein is actually made by the Golgi apparatus. And then it will be sent. Okay. So that's it. Okay, so there you have it, guys. So going back into that of the plant cell, there are the different parts. And cells need to make more cells. In making more cells actually has the duty, or it has that function to replace, repair, and grow. And the cell must copy their DNA, make extra organelles, it would also divide the new DNA and the new organelles between two new daughter cells. So later on, we shall be having what we call the cell division. We shall also be discussing all about mitosis and meiosis. So what organelle that do this work? We have the nucleus and that of the centrioles. Okay? So there, the centrioles, it helps coordinate cell division. By the way, this is only in animal cells. So there should be one pair of each cell that is needed during the process of mitosis. So that is what we call the centrioles. Okay? So where do we find the centriole in the animal cell? There. It helps in the cell division. So guys, to summarize our discussion for today, we have cells have three main jobs. It makes energy, it makes proteins, and it makes more cells. Okay? So that's what we call the cellular story. Any question? If there is none, until next time, my dear students.